Happy birthday.
I mean, that's an expensive
It is, amplifies, but it's still.
Welcome to the Melrose Unitarian Universalist Church. Our service today is called Have Hope, and our speaker is longtime member of this church, Randall Grometstein. The UUA theme of this month is Justice and Equity. Good morning. My name is Liz Folser. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm the vice president of this congregation and today's worship host. Our minister, Dr. Reverend Suzanne Trilligator, is away on sabbatical, and she'll return to our pulpit on April 7th. Please check the announcements in the midweek update. A couple of announcements. Our climate team would like to hear from you, and there is a survey in that email. And also, today is the chocolate sale that supports scholarships for our Cape Cod retreat. So you have two opportunities to buy chocolate out there. One is the chocolate sale. The Equal Exchange will also be contributing part of their proceeds to the Cape Cod retreat. We are a church of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. All who share our values are welcome here with us today. Now let's say hello to one another. Folks on Zoom, go to gallery view. All wave and say hi. Say hi to your neighbors. Great to see you. Hi, Katie. I'd like to say thank you to our helpers today. Rebecca Mooney and Beth Yorgrau are hosting coffee hour. Beth is also our usher, and our greeter is Kathy Sang. These are small jobs that go a long way to make our service more friendly and welcoming, and I encourage you all to check your calendars and sign up to fill those slots one Sunday later this year. It's a sign-up genius. I bet that link is in the midweek update. And now we're going to hear from Mary Beth Griscom about why she chooses to support Melrose Unitarian Universalist Church. Mary Beth?
Good morning. 25 years ago, on a sunny September Sunday morning, the Griscom family of four made our first visit to this church. My husband Dan and I, and our 3-year-old son Andy, and our 5-month-old son Connor were greeted in the foyer by dear Alan Grometstein, who leaned down to Andy's level and said, "Who do we have here?" Andy immediately hid behind Dan's legs. Alan stood up and said to all of us, come in, you are all very welcome." And I remember his exact words because that sense of welcome has greeted me each time I walk through the front doors of this building. Getting verklempt here. MUUC is a special place that means so much to me. The community at MUUC has become my friends and loved ones' community. I've met so many people from Melrose and farther afield: San Diego, New Orleans, Schenectady, Illinois, Rhode Island, Texas, South Carolina, Taiwan, Colombia, Australia, and Italy. Over the years, I've had the pleasure of forming deep and lasting relationships that are the centerpiece of my life. During the last 25 years, I've also worked to repay the many gifts I've received from this beloved community. I've served on committees, many communities, sometimes as a member, and often in leadership roles. I've been a board member, chair of finance, chair of fellowship, a member of the Covenant Group leadership team, the interim minister search committee, and on and on. I've experienced the teamwork and joy, yes, joy, of putting together the annual budget, the harvest fair, the church auction, teaching RE classes, and sending senior youths on service trips to Mexico and New Orleans. So many volunteer opportunities to be had. See me for details. I have also experienced the camaraderie of board retreats, the Mave Walk, circle suppers, the Women's in Cape Cod retreat, cooking and serving meals for Bread of Life, preparing mac and cheese and soup and lasagna and baking pies and cookies and apple crisp for meetings and fairs and church community meals. Finally, my family makes a pledge each year to support our commitment to this beloved community. We pledge to support our minister and our staff and to care for our church building. We know that a community that will grow and thrive needs to be cared for with the funds that support our vision and values. They are our values too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Beth. And now we light the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith, the flaming chalice. Here to light ours this morning is and lead us in reading our covenant is Karen Gabler. Karen is the chair of worship and a co-captain of the anti-racism team.
Please stand if you're able. I invite you now to rise in body and spirit and join me in the words of the covenant, which you can see on the screen. Can you hear me? There we go. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. This is our great covenant, one with another and with our God.
Please remain standing and join us in our opening hymn, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. It's number 170 in the gray hymnal, and the words will appear on the screen.
Singing for our
Before she reads our story, I would like to acknowledge that Katie Campbell, our DRE, our Director of Religious Education, has told us that this will be her last Sunday with us. Katie, on behalf of the entire congregation, I would like to thank you for your dedication to our children and youth, and we wish you all the best in the future.
Thank you. Our story today is Little Mole Finds Hope by Glennis Nellis, illustrated by Sally Garland. Little Mole was sad. He lay in his burrow deep underground and put his head in his paws. Little Mole, whatever's wrong? Asked Mama. I just don't know, Mama, sniffed Little Mole. But I don't feel good inside. I'm sad. What you need is hope, Mama said. Hope? What's hope? Where do I find it? Little Mole asked. Come with me, Mama said, as she took hold of Little Mole's paw. Sometimes hope is hiding in the darkness. Sometimes it's hard to see, but it's always there. You just have to find it. Mama led her son gently out of the dark burrow up toward the light. But on their way out of the tunnel, Mama stopped. Do you see this bulb, Little Mole? She asked. Mama pointed to a bulb squashed in the dark earth. It was brown, wrinkled, and lifeless. It's dead, Mama, said Little Mole. No, my dear, Mama whispered. This bulb is not dead. Sometime soon, it will feel the warmth of the sun. It will begin to grow and push its way out of the deep, cold earth. One day, this bulb will become a beautiful yellow daffodil. Close your eyes, Little Mole. Can you see it dancing in the wind? Yes, Mama, cried Little Mole. I see it, I see it. That is hope, Mama said. Little Mole and Mama reached the top of the burrow where the sun was shining. Look up, Little Mole, Mama said. What do you see? Little Mole looked up. He saw woodpeckers sitting in the trees, but the branches were bare. They stretched out like skeleton bones silhouetted against the sky. They're dead, Mama, said Little Mole. No, my dear, Mama whispered softly. The trees are not dead. One day soon, buds will appear, and these branches will be covered in bright green leaves. Close your eyes, Little Mole. Can you see them dancing in the wind? Yes, Mama, cried Little Mole. I see them, I see them. That is hope, Mama said. Little Mole and his mama scurried along the edge of the woods until they came to Mr. Rabbit's garden. An old brown flower pot was lying on its side in the soil. Under the rim, something small and shriveled was hanging. It's dead, Mama, said Little Mole. No, my dear, Mama whispered softly. This chrysalis is not dead. One day soon, the butterfly growing inside will burst out of her shell. She will spread her wings and fly free among the flowers. Close your eyes, Little Mole, said Mama. Can you see her dancing in the wind? Yes, Mama, cried Little Mole. I see her, I see her. That is hope, Mama said. Little Mole and his mama went home. I had a wonderful day today, Mama, Little Mole said happily. Now I know that there's always hope, even in the darkest places. Mama smiled as she tucked Little Mole into bed, pulled his quilt up under his chin, and kissed him goodnight. And Little Mole closed his eyes and fell fast asleep, dreaming of yellow daffodils, green trees, and beautiful butterflies dancing together in the wind. Thank you so much, and children who are here can come down to Ari.
Every Sunday, in the center of our service, we create a time together of quiet, a moment for prayer and meditation, a chance to connect with our inner selves, our highest ideals, our sense of the holy, however we conceive of it. In this meditation time, first we'll join together in our centering song. Then we will sit for a few moments of shared quiet. Then we will speak to one another of our joys and concerns. Our centering song today and from the month of February is Comfort Me, number 1002 in the Teal Hymnal. The lyrics will appear on the screen. So let's begin this time together by closing our eyes and breathing deeply. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your body relaxing, sinking into your seat. Breathe in and breathe out. Remain seated and join in the song as you like, and let the music gently guide you into our time of shared meditation.
It is our tradition in worship to share with one another the milestones of our lives, our personal joys and sorrows. We speak and listen with care so that our sharing knits us together in love, in strength, in community. We'll start with sorrows. If you have a sorrow to share, please type it into the chat, and Liz will read them aloud after everyone who is in the sanctuary has shared.
Now is the time for our offertory. Our church is a self-supporting organization funded by your generous annual pledge. You may also contribute to our weekly collection plate, which we split every month with a deserving cause. Folks on Zoom can donate either way using the orange button at the top right corner of our homepage at melroseuu.org. For the month of February, this church will be giving half of our collection plate to the Immigrant Support Alliance. The Immigrant Support Alliance, an outgrowth of this congregation's former immigration ministry, is a nonprofit coalition of volunteers that partners with resettlement agencies to provide food, housing, financial, and social support to its clients, helping them on their journeys towards becoming independent, contributing members of our communities. Our offertory anthem today is "Will Justice Roll Down" by Jason Shelton.
This is the day.
you, choir. Dr. Randall Grometstein is a criminologist at Fitchburg State University, and she's here to tell us today about some progress of human history that will give us hope as we move forward.
I really loved that story about my father. Somehow I don't think that's likely to be said of me, but anyway, here's hoping anyway. So the subtitle for this is really a talk. Someone asked me last night, are you going to give a ministerial sermon kind of thing? And that's why I switched from the pulpit to the lectern. No, I'm going to give a talk, which is something an academic is more used to doing. But the subtitle is The Invisible Miracle of Human Progress. So as our anthem asked, will justice ever roll down? We are a very impatient people. But I think that as most of us here believe in the notion of human progress, and I think we need to remind ourselves from time to time that progress is real, it is lasting, and it should encourage us for the struggles ahead. And since today is the day of the Super Bowl, forgive me if I give you a football metaphor, the goalposts have moved a lot, all right? So what I propose to do is to give you some examples of lasting human progress and a quick summary of one of the major theories as to why this is actually lasting progress rather than a flash in the pan. And I'll end with a football example. How's that? So one of the reasons progress is invisible has to do with who we are as human beings. We really do have short lifespans, although they're longer these days. There's a universal feeling that life used to be better in the past, such as the Garden of Eden, followed by, of course, the fall. And never forget, we are evolutionarily designed to pay attention to signs of danger. Remember the story of Chicken Little. The sky is falling. We must go and tell the king. So progress can be hard to see unless you have some way to see it. And recently, we have developed large-scale data collection made possible by the computer revolution, and the internet allows us to share it. And there are 3 websites. If you're at all interested in this, I'll be happy to remind you of these 3 websites afterwards. They're all .orgs, and they are dedicated to displaying the data that I'm going to refer to. Bill, maybe the first slide. So this is a graph. And notice, one of the first things to notice is it's not a smooth line, all right? Human progress has its ups and downs, and it has its trends. This is the share of the world's population living in extreme poverty in the last 200 years alone. Notice that it starts in 1820, when almost 80% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty. And in 2018, which I'm going to round to 2020, the percentage of the world's population, which is, by the way, the world's population is vastly bigger than it was 200 years ago, but the percentage living in extreme poverty is now 10% or less. Is that enough? That's a separate question. Yeah. Next slide, please. It's a little hard to see the title, but hunger is falling around the world. Now, this map does not present data for the advanced countries, that's why they're in white. But please pay attention to the countries in green, which have enormously decreased the number of people who are hungry in the last, by 50% or more in just this century alone. All right, that's principally China, Brazil, Peru, okay? But they have very large populations. The orange countries, which include India and Argentina, among others, decreased their hunger rate by 25%. 50% or more is green, 25 to 50 is orange, and yellow, I believe, and there are a few yellows, is less, they decreased it by 25% or less, which matters very much to the people in those countries. Child labor is on the decline. Child labor turns out to be a temporary phenomenon in an industrializing economy, and we therefore, the trend is clearly down in this slide, and we want to bring it down even further. Whoops, I'm sorry, next slide, I didn't give you that, sorry. So, the percentage of children doing hazardous work is in green. The percentage of children just simply laboring is in orange. Both of those trends are down. I think I have one more, right? Ah, yes. So, life expectancy is rising. The different colors, which are very hard to see, have to do with the sections of the world. These are not, so for example, the bottom line is Africa, and Africa is still behind the other areas of the world. But notice that all of those lines are trending up. Okay? This is over a period of closer to 250 years. Now, one of I study crime and violent behavior, and people have asked me, isn't that a depressing subject? Well, it depends on which part of it you look at it. Since about the year 1200, homicide rates have been falling. So the next time you read an alarming headline that says crime rates are up, what you do is you say to yourself, 1 year to the next. And they do. These numbers never fall like a ski slope. They zig and they zag up and down, but the trend is down, down, down. This particular graph has to do with Europe, and the US has some ground to make up. They're ahead of us in decreasing homicide rates over ours, but homicide rates are down. Do I have one more? Okay. And even in the good old US of A, we had a peak in crime rates in the 90s, and those are coming down. And then one more, because we have an national election coming up. More people in the world live in a democracy now. The democracy is the green at the bottom. Okay? So over this period from almost 1820 to almost 2020, the share of the world living in a democracy, and these are much larger populations, of course, than they were 200 years ago, has many more, not just percentage-wise, but absolute numbers, people are living in a democracy now. And then one more. More people are going to school for longer. There are great inequities within the world, but all of those numbers are up. Okay? So I think I'm done with my slides. Thanks. So the world is doing better in an awful lot of ways. And the question is why? Is there a theory that would help us understand this? And so there was a 20th century sociologist named Norbert Elias who studied the process of European history. How did we come from little warring kingdoms about the time of Robin Hood to major modern nation states. All right? And he suggested something that he called the civilizing effect, which other theorists have looked at, and they've connected to, this is the theory as it's explained in my discipline, the theory of self-control. In order for humans to live in larger and more complex societies that engage in more social cooperation, we all had to learn to do all of the things that religion teaches. All right? We have to learn to hold our tongue. We have to be respectful and kind. We have to wait and not act on impulse. We have to learn to turn the other cheek, which is a wonderful example of self-control. We have to plan. We have to think about what's coming. I'm mostly familiar with the peoples of the book, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, but every major religion I've come across spends its time telling people to exercise better self-control, which I find absolutely exhilarating. It's the reason why the language of ethics and morals is religious. Because if you lived long, long ago and you said, hey folks, there's a better way to live, you had to explain why anyone should pay attention to you. So you said, because God has told me to tell you, and people paid attention. Norbert Elias, who wrote about Europe, gave 3 examples of increasing self-control. Highway travel. Once upon a time, people in cities were scared to travel to another city. They had to be armed for robbers and other thieves who would jump out from behind the next bend in the road and steal their goods. Today, we travel on 8-lane highways, and almost everybody stays in their lane and obeys the speed limits more or less, and everyone gets to their destination. John has described highway driving as a team sport, and I think many people are coming to understand that. If you ever want to chuckle, you read Norbert Elias talking about the development of modern table manners. It first involved getting people to leave their weapons outside their door and come to the table, at the time, armed only with their fingers. And armed only with their fingers disgusted people, so they developed forks and they developed spoons. And then they developed something really interesting called table knives, which are not suitable for stabbing your dinner partner. I promised to mention something about football. Sports are very old, very thousands of years old. But for example, in the Middle Ages, sports were really pitched battles between villages, such as Shrovetide football. People died in playing those games. Modern organized sports came about in the playing fields of Eton, a British school, in the 19th century, where civilized rules of football were promoted and the concept of fair play. It's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. And people said, oh. In American sports in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, crowd violence would erupt if the home team lost. Women were not encouraged to attend as spectators because of the violence. And in football, college football in the early 20th century, there were 18 deaths and 139 serious injuries in 1904 alone, leading to calls to ban college football. Columbia University seriously considered getting rid of their football team for that reason. Only Teddy Roosevelt saved the day. He was president of the country at the time, and he promoted rule changes for football. Now, some of my examples not only are modern, but, and I'll come to them in just a moment, are from my lifetime, which I find very interesting. In the 70s, most hockey players did not wear helmets. And then when the rule promoting helmet wearing was put out there, goalies didn't wear helmets for the longest time, okay? And if you think about most of the major contact sports, there have been major rule modifications, and I personally hope to see the concern with head injuries in football addressed better than it has been so far. So within society as a whole, we've seen the disappearance of the vendetta, the feud, the aristocratic duel, a decrease in street violence and crowd violence. The real reason for inventing police was because of mob violence. The more complicated our social structures, the more people have to be in charge of their own behavior, hence the idea of self-control. So, what makes, I am a cockeyed optimist, I fully admit that. People have been saying this to, at least everyone's forgotten about the book Pollyanna. Otherwise I would be called a Pollyanna, I'm sure. But humans have a history of greater and greater cooperation. Prehistoric peoples lived in small groups, usually no bigger than an extended family. Do you remember the story that Abraham was told by God to go and preach God's word to the people of, this is Sodom and Gomorrah, although the Bible doesn't actually say which city. And when he arrived, they were going to kill him. Why? Not because he said he was from God, but because they didn't know who he was. He was a stranger. Agriculture made cities possible, and then armies were invented that led to empires, and the modern nation state emerged very recently, more recently than we realize, only about 500 years ago. And in the 1870s, the modern states of Western Europe plus Germany and Italy were all in place, only as recently as the 1870s. The US had a civil war in 1865. It wasn't clear whether we were going to still be a country until after that. Canada didn't take final shape until the 20th century, and the same with Mexico. So we are building towards, we not as a country, but as a species, are building towards greater and greater social cooperation. And in order to do that, our tolerance for violence is decreasing. So just one other example from my lifetime. Our tolerance for American war deaths, okay? The Vietnam War was fought over 20 years. 47,000 Americans died in Vietnam. So if you go to the Vietnam Veterans War Memorial in Washington, there are that many names on the wall. 47,434. Now it's 1990 and the Gulf War is being fought. 149 Americans, 149.0 Americans died. In Afghanistan, a war conflict that lasted for 20 years, fewer than 2,000 American deaths. And in the Iraq War of 2003 to 2011, fewer than 3,600 American deaths. Why do I focus on American deaths? Because we care enough to document them. Those are fairly accurate numbers. There have been declines in, I wrote a paper about the death penalty. Now, the death penalty is still the law in slightly more than half of the states, but only slightly more. There have been several states in recent years that have abolished the death penalty. Even in the states who continue to have a death penalty on their books, the number of executions is down so sharply that I wrote this paper 10 years ago that I predicted by 2030 there would be effectively no executions, and I'm on target. Recent centuries have seen better treatment of animals, expansion of civil rights for minority groups, women, people of alternate sexualities, the disabled, etc. And, at least until a few years ago, the growth of democracy at the expense of autocracy. So, as we look forward to the rest of this century, part of the reason I started down this particular path was when I was a youth group advisor here for the high schoolers for about 10 or 15 years, I would ask them to talk about climate change, and they all looked at me as though they saw a gallows standing behind me. And I would say, but there's progress being made to combat climate change. And they would say, no, there isn't. And too many other people feel the same way. Climate change is our biggest challenge. But I make the argument that Homo sapiens is ready to meet it and is in the process of meeting it. So Martin Luther King told us that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Let's recognize the difference between impatience on our part and despair. There's no reason for despair. Thank you very much for listening. So now it's time to extinguish our chalice. I've never actually done this. No? A hymn. There's a hymn. I'm sorry, Tom. There's a hymn. My apologies. Go ahead.
187. Sounds among the ages. The words will appear on the screen.
Please join with me as we say the words that are on the screen together. Extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth. The These we gather in our hearts until we are together again. Our service has ended. Please sit and enjoy the postlude from Tom, and then join us for a time of fellowship in Fellowship Hall. Thank you for worshiping with us today. Happy Sunday.